Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, you're welcome to today's edition of Money Radio on Leadership Podcast. Money Radio is that program that brings to you the latest developments in Nigeria's business and economic cycles and issues of businesses around the world. My name is Innocent Odo, and today we are focusing on a very important sector of the economy, the agri-care subsector, and we're looking at how to provide working loans to Nigerian farmers to address the issue of the looming food crisis that is threatening Nigeria and other West African countries. It might interest you to know that in recent times in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the security situation has worsened and thereby are disrupting farming activities and in some cases chasing away the farmers from their land. And so we are looking at a comprehensive effort at other international organizations and of course local financial institutions on how to mobilize resources, especially loan facilities, to help these farmers reorganize themselves, refocus, revitalize that agri sector, and of course ensure that Nigeria provides the necessary food security. Now, this is coming on the back of the crisis in Ukraine. The war going on in Ukraine today has disrupted the food value chain, and of course, some other important food items have also been affected in Nigeria, especially the production of wheat, for instance. Nigeria depends so much on wheat production that is imported from Ukraine and Russia. And so this it has become incumbent on Nigerian authorities and, of course, stakeholders in the agri subsector to ensure that we mobilize resources, mobilize funds, especially loan facilities, to help these local farmers to be able to address the looming food crisis in the country, which some reports say that about 16 million people might face food shortages in the coming months if drastic measures are not taken to curtail this danger that is facing all of us in the sub-region, especially Nigeria, knowing fully well, of course, that Nigeria is the largest and the most populous country in West Africa, and indeed the whole of Africa, with about 200 million population. You can imagine how much that Nigerian population will produce if the adequate facilities are, provided for the farmers in this regard. And so our focus today on Money Radio is how the farmers can have access to loan facilities at a very affordable interest rate in order to motivate them to help in food production, at least to help us stay out of hunger and, of course, add value to the Nigerian economy in that regard. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm here with Kes Hammond, whom I'm going to deal with this issue. Also joining us via our virtual platform is Paul Wadima, who is going to also help contribute this very important topic. Kes, you're welcome to the program.
Thanks, it's a pleasure being here.
It's always a pleasure having you in the program.
Yeah.
And Paul, if you can hear me, Paul Wadima, Paul, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Maybe we'll start with you, Paul. You have heard that there is a looming food crisis in Nigeria and also some parts of West Africa. The African Parliament, the ECOWAS Parliament to be precise, actually having a session in Abuja, and some of these issues are the issues that they are talking about. They are discussing on how to protect the citizenry from the looming hunger, facing the citizens of the continent, the sub-region. And so they are trying to get facilities, loan facilities, mobilizing funds from different agencies, both local and international, on how to ensure that they avert this looming danger of food crisis that is actually staring us in the face. Paul, what is your take on this?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. The issue of food scarcity in our country and in the sub-region is scary. This is because for the past 3 years, there has been constant challenges of the sub-region feeding itself and Nigeria feeding itself. And this is as a result of many factors. Some of these factors include climate change. It includes the COVID-19 lockdown, which affected the availability of farm inputs like fertilizer. and then insecurity, and then the quality of seeds available in the sub-region and in Nigeria. So this problem combined with climate change issue, which has affected the rainfall variation within the sub-region, had created a situation where the quality of food and productivity has really dropped. And the situation is not helped by the large-scale insecurity in the sub-region and in Nigeria in particular. If you look at the West African sub-region, most of the coup that has taken place in Africa has taken place in West Africa. And this is tied to poverty, and that poverty is exacerbated by inability of the agricultural sector to be able to provide means of livelihood for a sub-region in which the majority of its people are farmers. So it is really a big challenge how to address this problem. But it's a problem that needs to be addressed urgently because West Africa cannot continue to depend on international agencies to donate food to it, or for international agencies to help it to fund its agriculture. I believe that the best thing that the sub-region can do is to look inward, even though in the short run, we may need international assistance to be able to address this issue. Therefore, what can we do, especially here in Nigeria? What can we do to be able to provide a loan facility for farmers? Already, many of us are aware of what the Central Bank of Nigeria has done in the Anchor Borrowers Program, through which the Central Bank has been funding rice production in the country. And I always like to remind Nigerians that this is a highly successful intervention by the Central Bank. Because if you will recall, during the lockdown, when no part of the world was functioning, including Nigeria, Nigerians were not able to eat imported rice. They relied mostly on locally produced rice. Most of those rice that we ate during the lockdown were the result of the investment that was made through the Anchor Borrowers Program. Now, the Anchor Borrowers Program, despite some of its shortcomings, is probably one of the best programs that has ever been developed in this country. Now, having helped us to reach to the level where Nigeria is today the largest producer of rice in Africa, we have overtaken Egypt in rice production. Of course, we still need more to be done in the sector. We can also move away from rice. We can also extend the funding intervention in rice to other sectors that we need assistance so that we can be able to be sustainable. Already, we know that the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing a lot to fund oil palm production in Nigeria. It is one sector that Central Bank is making a lot of investment, and that also needs to be encouraged. It is one of the areas that not only that it will help Nigeria to meet the palm oil demand locally, it's also going to help the country to be a major exporter of palm oil and all its derivatives. Don't forget, this country was a major oil palm producing nation in the 60s. It was from this country that countries like Malaysia and Indonesia came to learn how to plant palm produce, and they were able to arrive to their present position as top producers of palm produce in the world. So we need to encourage the CBN to diversify its funding to cover all the value chains in the agricultural sector, especially so that the funding can reach the grassroots. Most of the food we eat, both from poultry to animal husbandry and all whatnot, they are produced by smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers do not have access to credit, and they do not have the political connection to be able to have access to credit. So West African sub-region and indeed Nigeria must find a way of getting credits to the smallholder farmers who are really the people feeding this country, who are really the people that are in dire need of assistance if we are to be able to feed ourselves in this country and bring down the price of food produce in Nigeria, which you and I know is on the high side because of so
All right,
many
Paul.
reasons that I have earlier estimated, and then there are also some political reasons that need to be addressed by political leaders so that we can move from where we are to where we are supposed to be as a nation that has its population mostly engaged in agricultural production. Thank
All
you.
right, Paul. Okay, Paul. I will return to you shortly, but back to the studio here. Hammond.
Yeah.
You have heard how Paul enumerated the issues on credit facilities to farmers. Of course, it has not been very easy for the farmers in recent times, especially coupled with the challenges of all the climate change that he mentioned and the rest of them. Now, the issue of a CBN getting involved, the intervention of the CBN, yes, one of the major areas where the farmers felt a sense of government, in that sector. But that has not been too sustainable, if you ask me. Is it only the CBN that is supposed to get involved in agricultural, processes? What about the commercial banks? What about the banks of, let's say, Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture? We do have all these institutions here that can play a very major role in enhancing these credit facilities for farmers. So, what exactly are those ones doing, in this regard, and how much of the credit can the farmers really access?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The CBN is the CBN has its role to play, for which it was established in the first place, and that is monetary policies.
Yes.
You see, all of these issues pertaining to exchange rate differentials, the money in circulation, who gets what, and what. All of those things are supposed to be the prerogative of the CBN. So actually, if you look at what the CBN has done, talking about the Uncle Borrowers program as well as other interventions, they are actually going beyond their mandate, what they were established for. However, going beyond their mandate, they may have acted in a timely fashion. I say so because there is the Ministry of Agriculture, which we hear very little about, and you mentioned the Bank of Agriculture
Yes.
and all of that. You know, the ministries seem to be there seems to be so much bureaucracy in the ministries, and so the intervention, and if it wasn't an intervention, the CBN ordinarily should have less business to do with intervening in agricultural processes, but they came in timely because there is so much bureaucracy in the ministries. Now, Nigeria, as well as a good number of African countries, are usually reactionary instead of being proactionary. Yes, uh, we are supposed to. Government is supposed to be. You're supposed to be prescient. Look at problem, or you think about likely problems ahead of their time instead of allowing the problems to come to you and then you react to those problems.
Yes.
This thing is something. Climate change is not starting today, like Mr. Paul said. Climate change has been encroaching on us,
Yes.
and we are supposed to know. We were supposed to know that these three issues would actually arise before now. So the fact that we have allowed the issues that are encroaching on us to encroach on us before now means that we are only reacting to a problem instead of being proactive to those problems. Be that as it may, we know also that the commercial banks are not want to intervene in agricultural investment. Why? We have inflation.
Mm.
And when we say inflation, we're talking about month on month
Yes.
progression.
Yes.
So if you have inflation of up to 16, 17%, and think about it, the rate, the primary rate, uh, the lending rate
Yes.
from the primary institution, which is the central bank, it used to be 11.5. Right now, it's 13.
Yes.
From the recent MPR meeting, it's now 13. We're talking about when the commercial banks take money from the CBN and lend, they have to work on, they have to give to these different institutions or businesses based on what they will get as their own margin, their own profit. So if you are taking money that is the MPR from say 13%, you think about the inflation rate and then you think about your profit. So we are talking about not just 13%, but we are talking about what the inflation rate at 16,
16.7%
say
now.
17%
Yes.
now. You are saying
Yes,
17.1.
17.9%.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, think about that and then think about their margin. So when they are lending, they are going to be lending at maybe 25%, 28%. And when you're talking about growing crops, it's not going to be 3 months, 4 months, except it's maize. But when you talk about other crops, it's going to take months and possibly years. So when you factor all of that in, you come to find out that it's not profitable lending to agricultural institutions. That is one of the reasons why the CBN has had to come in and intervene and not even just wait for the agricultural ministry to take it there. But having said all of this, what your break time is ready.
Yeah, I think
We'll talk about
we'll
it
talk
later.
about. We'll take a short break.
Yeah.
When we come back, we will continue the discussion. It's quite interesting to note that some of the commercial banks are actually supposed to help farmers with loan facilities are not able to do so for obvious reasons. Until we come back, don't go away.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're on to Money Radio on Leadership Podcast, and our focus today is the need to provide working loans to Nigerian farmers to be able to avert the looming food crisis that is threatening Nigeria and other West African countries. I've been in the studio with Kes Hammond, doing justice to this very important topic, and of course, we're joined by Mr. Paul Wadima virtually. And I would like to return to Paul now. If you're ready, let's take you on some of the issues that have been raised here. Paul, are you ready? Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I'm ready.
Yes, very clear. There are some issues that Kes raised here, which is, of course, the challenges of securing loan facilities for farmers from the commercial banks. And he has actually made a mention of the issue of the lending rates, which is also, of course, which challenge is also compounded by inflation in the country, where the banks are looking for how they're also going to make profit. And at the end of the day, we'll have an interest rate, running as far as 25%. I wonder how many farmers will be able to afford to get loan facilities at 25% interest rate and still remain in business. So I want you to look at these issues and see whether there are some areas where we can actually exploit to make the situation better in terms of securing loans for the farmers.
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the question. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Now, for the question you asked, the truth of the matter is this: the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing the best that it could. I know that a lot of people are looking at Central Bank and saying, why is Central Bank of Nigeria doing the work of commercial banks? But we all know that the commercial banks have failed this country. The commercial banks have put profits against national interest or above national interest. Because if not for the central bank, if we had to depend on the commercial banks, this country would have suffered more in this issue of food shortage. Because the central bank, the commercial banks are looking at return on investment in their banks. Central Bank of Nigeria ordinarily ought to be giving them directives on the areas to channel investment. You know that most commercial banks in Nigeria will prefer to give you a loan to import goods from China or from Japan or from United States than they will give you to go and do agricultural, farm, to get in agricultural productivity, because they see it as too risky a venture to intervene. And I think that is why Nigerians should appreciate the role of the central bank in encouraging single-digit interest rate lending to farmers who are falling into some of their programs. That's why I still believe that without the central bank, we may not be able to do much, because the commercial banks are looking at their return on investment. They are looking at their shareholders' return. So they don't see it necessary to put money in the agricultural sector. That is why Central Bank of Nigeria should continue to do more, and by diversification of its investment portfolio to other sectors of the agricultural value chain. Now, what can we do? How can we make funding available? The issue is this: we know that there are other agricultural banks set up that ought to be able to help farmers. Yes. For example, you did mention the Bank of Agriculture. Yes, but how many Nigerians have been able to benefit from the Bank of Agriculture? That is the big elephant in the room. How many Nigerian farmers have been able to access funding from the Bank of Agriculture? It has not been possible for many Nigerians. And as I said earlier on, most of the farmers that feed this country are smallholder farmers. What they really need is to have access to inputs. Federal government must continue to subsidize input like fertilizer, because there is no point subsidizing petroleum and the federal government cannot subsidize fertilizer. Fertilizer ought to be at the reach of every farmer in Nigeria, the smallholder farmers. They should be able to walk into their local government headquarters. They could be able to walk into their ward offices. local government wards, and be able to have access to fertilizer at subsidized rates. The smallholder farmers. It is the smallholder farmers that are giving us the yam that we are eating in this country. They are the ones responsible for the rice we eat. They are the ones responsible for the cassava we eat. They are the ones responsible for the guinea corn that we eat. They are the ones responsible for the beans that we eat. So there's a need to make sure that they have access to credit, and there's a need for them to have access to input that has to be subsidized. They need to have access to tractor, so that they can buy tractors, but they can be able to be given tractor hiring services at a very subsidized rate throughout the country. That is what we have to do if we are to be able to beat this hunger in the long run. But in the short run, what government needs to do is to find a way of mopping up funds to make sure that even the goods that are produced now, they do not spoil because of this is very important.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for your contribution. And guess he's talking about mopping up funds, the kind of mobilizing funds, like I said, and okay, making it more specific in agri sector. Now, you made mention of the issue of commercial bank. These commercial banks have a way of not really playing their role in this very important sector that can enhance food security for the country and the sub-region. Now, there are, like we mentioned here, the Bank of Agriculture, that is a specific institution of directly involved, that should be directly involved in the provision of facilities for farmers in the country. I do not know how much of that they are doing, because if they are doing as much as we expected them to do, the CBN intervention might just be something to just complement the effort. But you hardly hear of Bank of Agriculture. Maybe I may be wrong, but I can assure you that a lot of farmers who have met and interviewed have said that accessing loan from that institution has been very Herculean a task for them. So how do we begin to reorganize these institutions to be able to serve the purpose for which they are meant? Because right now, the farmers need more encouragement in terms of loan facilities to be able to, go into more productivity and avert the looming hunger that is threatening all of us. With a 200 million population in the country, if we go hungry, I don't think the rest of West Africa will be at peace, if you ask me. Yes. So, what is your take on that as we round up the program?
We're talking about subsidy.
Yes.
Subsidy is the answer. We're talking about, like Mr. Paul was talking about, the commercial banks coming in. In my opinion, the commercial banks haven't failed Nigerians or failed that industry. They are out there to make profit. And if they don't make that profit, they will actually fold up. The commercial banks will begin to fold up. You can't give loan that will give you negative return. It doesn't work that way. With the level of inflation in the country, of course, the commercial banks don't have a choice but to support importers that will return or that will give them returns in 3 months.
Yes.
Because if they don't, their money will remain with the people they are investing in, and with time, they won't be able to even pay back, or they will pay back at a much later date. And with that much later date, you will see that they will begin to lose, and before you know it, commercial banks will begin to fold up. So the only option right there is to have the Bank of Agriculture. Of course, the Bank of Agriculture also does not have so much funds because there are many problems that are actually militating against farming. Think about the militancy going on or the insecurity that we are facing. Those people, some of them don't go to farm because they really it's risky going to farm. And besides that, when they are harvesting their products, those bandits go and get taxation, they request taxes from them or levies for farming. So when they begin to pay the bandits, all of that, and then they have to pay the Bank of Industry, they are running at a loss. So these are all problems that we are facing. So, like Mr. Paul said, the solution to this is for the central bank or whichever bank it is, the Bank of Agriculture, whichever bank it is, or government needs to actually invest, even if it's at a loss, invest in the farm, or in agriculture,
Yes,
plunge money into farming
yes.
so that we'll have food. Because once there is no food, there will be unrest.
Once there is no food, there will be unrest, and it is better to stop that unrest by investing in Nigerian farmers. Of course, providing adequate loan facilities to them to be able to cushion the effect of the encumbrances in this sector that has hit them. Talk about insecurity, climate change, and all that have come to beset the agri sector. So it is on that note that we draw the curtains on today's edition of Money Radio. We've been talking about how to provide loan facilities to Nigerian farmers to enable them, of course, enhance their productivity. And I've been in the studio with Kes Hammond. Kes, thank you so much for joining us in the program once again today.
Thank you very much.
And we have been joined virtually by Mr. Paul Wadima, who has also made very thoughtful contributions in today's program. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. And we promise you to bring a bumper edition of the program when next we come. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080
You guys, even with a private notice, always at the
Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.